Hello friends, and welcome to the Cozy Sofa, where we're going to be discussing all cozy things. However, I will also be introducing you to the mystery sofa, filled with wonderful skepticism, questions, and wondering what's next. Or the horror sofa, where we'll talk about wonderful horror-y things. Yeah, okay. Back to cozy, Melissa. Right now, we're going to focus on cozy because I love a good cozy film. I think all of us do. I think all of us crave that warmth of comfort and like almost like a cuddle and a hug for our hearts and also for our souls. So we're going to go ahead and start with cozy, but we're going to go ahead and journey into the little bit of a mystery area and also a horror area today, because today we're going to be talking about film and movie and book recommendations for this fall season. And I was really excited to make this video, especially since this was a video that you guys actually asked for. It just made me so excited to make, because this is something you want to see and I want to share. So let's go ahead and talk about the cozy and what cozy is first, before we talk about some books and films. For me, cozy is something that feels warm and comforting. It feels like somebody's giving me a hug at all times. I watched a really interesting video a couple weeks ago about the word cozy and the idea of cozy and the genre of cozy. I've talked about this YouTuber before. I didn't mention their name because I always forget it, but here's the video I'm talking about. I'm also going to go ahead and list them in the description below, and they talk about the idea of cozy and what cozy is in films, and cozy being the idea of something that feels worrisome but always ends good in the end. For example, when we look at Practical Magic is considered a cozy film, but the idea and what's happening in that film is not actually cozy. We end up following two sisters who have a really hard time. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. I recommend watching it because it's a wonderful film. But those two sisters end up going through a really hard time. But at the end, it ends up looking up. And so I completely agree with this YouTuber and his thoughts behind what cozy is. Cozy isn't just like always being happy and lighthearted and good and good and good. It's we have our characters going through a problem, but most of the time it ends in a happy situation in the end. If it doesn't end in a happy situation at the end, we don't feel happy and overcome with joy or feeling like, thank goodness we can feel good and cozy and comfy and secure. So I really like this idea of cozy. So when I'm talking about the next films and books, they may not seem cozy at a certain aspect, but there is a reason why I chose them. So we're going to go ahead and first talk about some classics. These ones are going to be ones that you always hear, and I want to make sure that this video is focused on books and movies or shows that you may have not heard of, but I might sprinkle in a few just because these are the ones that pop into my head the most, and these are going to be like When Harry Met Sally, Practical Magic, Gilmore Girls. There are honestly so many that get mentioned. You've got Mail and Over the Garden Wall. These are ones that get mentioned so often, and I want to talk about a couple that have not been mentioned. When it comes to shows and films, I've actually done a video of 10 cozy shows I love watching, and I'm going to go ahead and, it's this one right here, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in the description below so you can click on it if you like to, but I've gone ahead and come up with a couple that I really love. One of them is a repeat, and that's Ghosts. I really truly love this show. I think this show depicts cozy at its fullest. Each episode has something that's going to happen. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we like watching these types of shows. Something has to happen for us to want to continue watching it because we want to know what the outcome's going to be. So each episode there's something interesting happening, and at the end you generally always end up with a happy note. The show is just full of heart and sweetness and wonderfulness. You have Jay and Samantha, who are just a cute, adorable couple. Jay is supportive and wonderful and just a 10 out of 10 person, and Samantha, yeah, she gets on your nerves sometimes, but she is learning, and it's wonderful to see this like growth and change. And we have our wonderful ghosts like Hetty and Isaac, but we have so many others. Honestly, there's so many that I can't flower. We have flour. I just had a flour moment. If you know the show, you know what I'm talking about. But the show is honestly just so sweet and so warm. Every episode is something that I'm just feeling like I can't wait to watch the next one. I recommend not binging it. I recommend just letting it kind of be one day an episode at maximum. We ended up watching it during our lunch periods on the weekend just to kind of offer a nice, warm, cozy thing on the weekend. But this show is really just sweet and wonderful, and I highly recommend it. The next three are actually movies, and these movies are movies that you've probably heard of, or maybe that you've thought about watching but maybe haven't watched, and some of them are just really old school. For example, The NeverEnding Story. This one is just wholeheartedly just wow all around. We end up following a young boy who ends up finding a book, The NeverEnding Story. He reads into the story, and as he's reading it, he's almost being pulled into the story, and he's on this adventure with our characters. The NeverEnding Story was a movie I watched when I was really young, and I may have not understood it completely, but watching it as an adult, every time I watch it, I'm just pulled in and I'm on this adventure, and I also want to just, do good. And I love how this film was created, and I love how it looks, and I love the fact that all of this puppetry and all of this beautiful creation and fantastical elements just truly are wonderful. It's a very fall feeling movie to me. It's very dark and it has a lot of thunder and lightning, but it also has a lot of wonderful colors and a lot of character, and it's just truly, truly fantastic. So if you've never watched The NeverEnding Story, I highly recommend it. It is a great film to watch when you're having a cup of cocoa, or maybe you want to have a nice warm cup of tea. It's really, really perfect. And having a little bit of lovely candle in the background, absolutely just fantastic. I do have to admit there are some parts that are a little sad, so you haven't seen it, be prepared, but it really is one of those heartwarming stories that you just have to dive into and just follow along. It's truly beautiful. Another one that's a little bit old school and wonderful is Willow. This one is one of those movies that I watched when I was a kid, and again, didn't actually understand really how amazingly done this film was. This is honestly so beautiful. Again, the special effects are just amazing and so breathtaking, and the fact that they did a lot of these things in the actual film itself, it's awesome. And this one is a little bit more fantastical in the sense that we do still live in a fantasy world, but there is a lot more rougher adventure. It's a little bit more adult focused in the sense that we follow a young man who ends up finding a baby, and this baby is being hunted down by an army and a queen who wants this baby's life to be ended. And so it's a very big adventure story. It's a lot of action, but it's a lot of heart and it's a lot of love, and it's just so beautiful. I hadn't watched this film in so long, and picking it up again, I was just gobsmacked with how much I enjoyed it. It's really a great film. I highly recommend it, and it's an old school, but it just lives in my heart as if it's just constantly there. So I highly recommend this one as well. Another one I think has been recommended in the past, but I'm going to just mention it, is The Princess Bride. If you haven't seen this film, go watch it. It's a classic love story. Not necessarily super folly, but still very beautiful. So I'm not going to go into the Princess Bride too much. I'm just going to say go watch it. It's really good. And the last film I'm going to actually talk about is a little bit newer, and that's Paddington. I hadn't seen this film, but it is gorgeous, and it is the essence of cozy. Like, if you want a wonderful family film that's full of laughter and joy, but coziness and warmth, I highly recommend Paddington. This is not just a kids movie. I am a 32-year-old adult loving this movie, and it's just so sweet, so heartwarming. We follow a young bear who is left the jungle and is finding a new life in New York City, and he ends up finding some people to live with, to explore with, and to realize what life really is. There are some tribulations that he has to work through, and of course there are some bad guys that we follow as well, and it's just such a lighthearted story. Paddington is just a wonderful character that you just want to give a big hug to at all times. And I never knew anything about Paddington growing up. It's actually a new thing for me, and I really do love it. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So if you're looking for more of the cozier films, I highly recommend these ones. Of course, we have ones that are a little bit more fantastical, adventurous, and that's going to be Willow and the Adventure Story. But the reason I consider these cozy is because we have this adventure happening. We have this troublesome situation, but we also have this wonderful ending that's crescendoing into this beautiful, just fantastical film. And it's heartwarming and wonderful, and it's just like a hug. Really, really great films. The books, on the other hand, are going to maybe feel a little bit different. And the books here, I think are a wide range of books, to say the least. One of them does not feel cozy at all, but for some reason it feels cozy. I know that sounds so weird, and that's Mythos by Stefan Fry. Mythos is a really cool collection of stories. It's not really a collection of stories, it's actually a start to end of kind of the Greek gods and how they came to be, how the world came to be through the Greek mythology. And it sounds really dry, I know, but it's not, because the stories are told as if we're reading stories from any of our other characters. Or maybe you're a big reality TV fan. This feels like reality TV almost, because we're following, for example, Zeus's fraternization with other ladies and what he's doing, but we're also following the journeys between so many different characters and what happened to them and how they became who they were. We're following Hades and who Hades was and why Hades was obsessed with Persephone. And so it honestly is so fascinating, and I felt so warm and cozy, especially since this was really great to pick up when I'm just wanting a little snippet of wonderfulness. So I would sit on the sofa early on Sunday mornings. I would just read a story or two or a chapter or two, and it was perfect. I felt very warm and cozy, and I was following almost the reality TV shows of my Greek gods, and it was so fun, so entertaining. Stefan Fry did an amazing job in making this book not feel dry and heavy and too textbooky, but gave me the chance to learn more about Greek gods and kind of how the descendants work and who became what and how they became something and how we ended up having these gods mean so much and why Zeus is Zeus. So I highly recommend this one for anybody who, one, is interested in Greek mythology, two, looking for something just fun and entertaining to read on a Sunday morning or just any morning with a cup of coffee or cup of tea, because this was so much fun. And if you're a reality TV fan, you don't even have to be a reality TV fan. If you just kind of like following stories of like why things end up the way they are, I highly recommend this one. It's just so fun. And I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading Stefan Fry's other novels as well, especially Troy. I think that one's going to be really fascinating. The next one I think fits perfectly with this season, and that's going to be Terry Pratchett, The We Free Men. I have talked about this book before in the past, but I wanted to talk about it again because I've been noticing Terry Pratchett pop up quite a bit in Discworld. I had never known anything about Discworld a couple years ago, and then my partner got me The We Free Men, and this was so adorable and so fun. We end up following our main lady who lives in this adorable little cottage with her family, and she notices things are moving around or disappearing, and she ends up finding these wee free men, and they are the cutest. They constantly say they're the free men, and they live in pretty much another dimension. And so this little girl ends up getting pulled to the dimension and learns about witchcraft, and she has her frying pan and her book, and it's just so sweet and so fun. So if you're wanting to kind of take a step or dip your toe into the Discworld world, I do recommend this one. This one's a first of one of the series. It's focused more on the witch side of the series. I mean, there are so many books. I am always shocked with how many different books there are. And I've only read this one and Mort, and both of them are lovely books. But for this season, I highly recommend The We Free Men, because one of the free men are just awesome. And we also have Tiffany, who's our main character, who's just fun to follow. She's on a journey and she's just discovering the world and discovering another world at the same time. Really fun. What a great adventure. It's actually quite short and it's a really easy read, so I'd highly recommend. The other one is a book I don't think I've ever talked about, and I read quite a while ago, and I was blown away with how beautiful this novel was, and I really enjoyed it. And I've never talked about it, which was kind of surprising, because this is a book that actually like trickles into my brain every once in a while, and I think it's really perfect for this season. But it's also really perfect if you love more of the historical fiction type of novels, which I'm a big fan of, and that's going to be The Postmistress by Sarah Blake. I read this one about 4 or 5 years ago, and I still think about it, and it's really beautiful. It's kind of almost touching into the mystery type of world, but it's really just kind of a cozy book. We end up following Iris, who is the postmistress, and she delivers the letters to the people in her small town, and it is a very small town, but this book also takes place in 1940. And of course we know what happened in 1940. World War II was going on, and so we also follow a story of somebody else who's also trying to deliver news. And so it is definitely a harder and heavier story. It's maybe not the coziest of all, but I do find it really beautifully written. I think Sarah Blake did a wonderful job in representing who Iris was, and you kind of really, you get so connected with Iris, at least I did, and I just thought it was so well done. It is definitely a heavier story, but it's so beautiful. It fits really well with the season because you end up following kind of the like coldness sometimes, and just really great. It does take place during World War II. It does talk a lot about kind of the inner workings of the small town that Iris lives in as well. She knows all the secrets. She feels like she's delivering the secrets and the news to each person as she drops off the letters to the townspeople. It's just such a fun, wonderful, and fantastical book. Definitely one of those novels that you're not going to be able to put down. I really did enjoy it, and it's still a book that I think about often after a few years. So highly recommend this one as well. Those are all of my cozy recommendations. I know these are some weird ones, especially on the book side, but I've talked about cozy books so much that it's actually getting harder to find cozy books to recommend, because I don't want to keep repeating them for you. But if you're looking for other cozy novels, I'll try to list a couple videos down in the description below so you can kind of look around some other videos that I may have posted that have some cozy books. I'll definitely post the cozy movies and shows down in the description as well, so you can check those out. But I think it's time to move on to our mystery sofa, because I would love to talk about some mysteries, or at least Mystery Melissa would like to talk about some mysteries. So let's go join her there. Hello friends, and welcome to the Mystery Sofa, where we're going to be talking about all the wonderful mystery things, especially during the fall cozy season. This season is, I think, perfect for any mystery, questionable, scoundrel type things that we can think of. And so I thought it'd be really fun to talk about some mysteries, especially some old school films, but also some books that I feel are just perfect during the season, where it's maybe dark and gloomy outside. You have maybe a mossy, leafy, decaying leaf smell, and you're just wondering who done it, who did this, and why. And so this is why we're here. This is still folly, this is still fun, and some of these are still a little cozy as well. Let's go ahead and dive into our shows and movies first. The first one I really want to talk about is one that I watched last year, and I thought it was so fun and so amazing, and that is Murder by Death. This film was so amazing. It's from the 1970s, and it is filled with an amazing cast. Don't ask me, I'm not very good with names, but I do recognize their faces, and it's just so fun. It may have not aged well in certain situations, but it's full of comedic relief. It's a fun little mystery. It feels like Clue, but a little bit more funny. And it's kind of like a different rendition of Clue. We end up getting a bunch of detectives called to this house to solve the mystery. And it's sometimes a group of detectives, so we have a son and his pa. We also have a wife and her husband. We also just have two hanging out detectives. It's just so fun. So we end up getting a bunch of different detectives into this house, and they're ending up kind of trying to figure out who done it before they actually get there. But then a lot of like fun and weird commotion happens. Almost deaths happen. The house is kind of funky and weird. Our caretaker, or our houseman, the man who lives in the house, is also our host. It's also just kind of fun. And so we end up just being just surrounded by these very intricate and also exquisite, I guess, types of people. They're just very fun, very weird, and it's just such a great film. If you have not seen Murdered by Death, I highly recommend it. It's such a great film to watch, especially if it's a little bit gloomy outside or a little dark outside. Grab yourself a wonderful cup of like warm, spicy tea and just dive into this film. It's so entertaining, and the ending is going to surprise you, I promise. The next film I'm going to talk about is honestly not a film. It's kind of a jumble of films, but I want you to focus on the old school ones, and that's the old school Agatha Christie mysteries. These aren't the new ones that have been being released in the last 10 years. Those ones are good, but for some reason the old school ones just hit differently. They just feel like you're watching a very old school mystery where you're in the 1950s, 1960s, and you're trying to discover what happened, who done it, and it's just such a wonderful experience to turn on one of these black and white films, or one of these films that are just a little bit more vintage almost. And it's so entertaining to watch, especially if you just want to have, you don't even have to have a cocktail. What you could do is just put some sparkling apple cider into a whiskey glass and enjoy some of these old school mysteries. Agatha Christie is a wonderful writer in the sense she's been able to make some of the most outstanding murder mysteries. At least back in the day when she was writing these books, these were brand new ideas, and they're really wonderful books, but the shows, the movies, there's just something about them that just makes it feel so old school and so fun. So if you haven't had a chance to see any of the old school Agatha Christie films, I highly recommend them. They're just gold. And the last one I'm going to recommend is actually a newer film that came out not too long ago. This kind of touch bases into like a horror side, but the mystery in this movie is just so well done. The music is also perfect. The character casting is perfect. The clothing is perfect. It just feels so wonderful. And that's Last Night in Soho. This movie was so beautifully done, and it has this feeling of just, you're almost being sucked into the film directly, and you're wanting to know what's happening, and you're also rooting for our character, but you're also trying to figure out what in the world is actually happening. It's so beautifully done. I love the cinematography in this film. I was blown away with just how beautiful everything was, especially when we're transitioning from one to another. We end up following this young girl who moves into Soho area, and she moves into this small little tiny rented room. And in this room, she starts kind of being pulled into this ghostly unknown, and being pulled back in time to a time where she's able to experience life how she can't experience it now. She's almost living a double life, but in reality, she's just seeing this woman's life that she wants to live. And slowly, she starts to adopt those things that she's learning from this woman into her own life. I don't want to say too much, because I think the wonderfulness and the amazingness from this film is seeing it for the first time and seeing how just well done it is, and also trying to pull it apart yourself and realizing what's going to happen at the end. It's just a beautiful film, and I highly recommend it. Warning, there is some horror kind of aspects in it. Of course, it's going to kind of leave you a little bit like, woo, but it's still a lot of fun and a wonderful mystery. Now let's move on to our books. I have 3 books here. I've talked about, I think, all 3 at one point, but not in extent. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. The first one is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyonka Braithwaite. This is a beautiful, weird novel. We already know who the murderer is, but why? And that's the coolest part of this story, is we're trying to figure out why and what is happening. We're trying to figure out the relationship between these two sisters and why one sister is just kind of going along with certain situations and the other one is also just kind of scary. And we end up following a little bit of the investigation from the police. It's really interesting, really fascinating, and definitely one of those books where you're going to be thinking, what in the world is happening at all times? We already know who the serial killer is, but we want to know why. And that is the fun part of this book, is we get to kind of dive deep into the thinkings and the doings of this relationship between these two sisters, and it's just so funky. Highly recommend this one. It's a lot of fun. The other one, I ended up doing a very long video on this one actually, and that's The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. I did a Solve With Me video with this book, and I know that sounds so weird. It was a very fun video, definitely very different from what I've done in the past, but it was really just a lot of fun. I went through each of the chapters and each of the characters and tried to solve this murder on my own, but this one is just a lot of fun. This one is like a Great British Baking Show mixed with a murder mystery. It's so entertaining. I really loved it. I also loved the food that they were talking about because you were having a contest of the baking items, but you also had a murder mystery happening in the background. It was one of those books where I had such a blast trying to solve myself, but I also just loved reading and learning about the characters and learning about their traits and learning about who could have done it. And so wonderful whodunit, feels very old school, feels like an old school Agatha Christie mixed with the Great British Baking Show. And if you know me, I love the Great British Baking Show. I love baking, so you've mixed mystery and baking. What could go wrong? So I highly, highly recommend this one. I loved it so much. And maybe if you want to, you can watch my spoiler-filled, completely filled review and solve along, and maybe you can read it with me and see if we have the same ideas while I solve this mystery. And the last book is actually kind of a weird one because I questioned if I liked this book and I wasn't sure if I did, but the more I think about it, the more I appreciate it, and that's The Maid by Nita Prose. Nita Prose? I think it depends. This looks like all the other mysteries or love stories. I don't really know what they are. They're the ones with the keyhole in the middle. This looks like one of those ones, but it's not. This is a different story. And this is really, really well done in the sense that you're not sure if you trust. It's one of those books where you have an untrustworthy narrator. And at times I was trying to figure out what was happening, and you're actually trying to figure out who the murderer was, and you're trying to figure out if it's our main character. And that is the mystery. And it's really, really beautifully done in the sense of the writing was really well weaved together, so you never know in the end. Well, you'll learn at the end what happened, but it is just so well woven together. We follow a young woman who works as a maid in this very large hotel, and this woman has what I would consider maybe some more autistic tendencies. And she has a hard time making connections with people. She has a hard time making eye contact with people. She has a hard time explaining her thoughts and being clear. She is very almost disconnected at times, but also connected in certain things. And she's really great at her job. And learning about how she kind of gets involved and it tries to help in certain ways, and then also how things get messed up so much. It's really well done. I'm still think about it, and it's one of those books where sometimes I'm like, ooh, I really liked that book, and then other times where I'm like, did I like that book? It's not because I didn't love the writing, it's not because I didn't love the story, it's because I'm still trying to figure it out sometimes. So I really enjoyed it in some points. I think it was still really well written, and I know this doesn't sound like a recommendation, but I do think you should read it because I think we should talk about it. So pick up The Maid by Nita Prose, and then we can have a chat about it because I want to talk about it. So those are my mystery recommendations. Now, the next section is going to be more horror, and I know horror is not for everybody, so I completely understand if you don't want to join this part of the recommendation lists, but I promise that I won't go into anything too scary, and Some of these are ones that I just highly recommend because they're really well done. The cinematography is great or the writing's really well done, but if you want to hang around, awesome. If not, I completely understand. But let's go ahead and move over to the horror chair. Horror. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to wear that the whole entire time because it actually gets really warm in there. But I thought it would be fun. So this is something I'll talk about a little bit later, but we're gonna go ahead and talk about some horror films and horror shows and some horror books that I highly recommend during this season. But first, let's go ahead and move you a little bit further down. Okay, now we're a little bit more comfy. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about a couple films and shows first. These are going to range from like fun comedic horror to a little bit more horror. And I may not seem like somebody who would like a bunch of horror films, but I actually find them really exciting. I watched them a lot with my dad when I was younger, and I still find them enjoyable, but I'm not a big fan of like gory horror. So we're not gonna go into that realm of things. But the first one I actually wanna talk about is The Fly. And The Fly is just a wonderful film. I thought this film was fantastic. It's funny, and the fact that I have Brundlefly in my head is just so funny. This film is an old school film. It has Jeff Goldblum playing as the scientist who builds this machine that can teleport him from one place to another. But the biggest thing about this teleport machine is that you have to go in there as if you're being bare naked, nothing on, and you have to make sure there's nothing else in there, because what's happening is it's tearing apart your genes and then moving you to something else, moving you to another place. So when you think of Willy Wonka and he gets like, that one gets like pixelated into the movies or into the TV, that's kind of like how this is made up as well. But you're not miniaturized and you're still a full-grown person. However, if something were to go into this transporter machine with you, your genes would get spliced with that. And that's where we come to the movie The Fly. This movie is so weird and so funky, a little bit of gross, but it's so well done. And the fact that Jeff Goldblum played the Fly, Brundlefly, so well is it just makes it so rich in the sense of like, it's almost like a comedic film, but it's so creepy and uncomfortable. There's a large portion of sci-fi in it, of course, as well, but I highly recommend this film. It's so much fun, so weird, and a delightful horror film to pick up too. Another one I actually really enjoyed with Daniel Radcliffe is The Woman in Black. This was also very atmospheric. I loved the darkness of it. I loved how uncomfortable it made me feel. There were some jump scares in it, and I'm not a big fan of jump scares, but it was very more atmospheric, and that's what I really love about certain horror films. I love the feeling and the uncomfortableness of them, but I don't like feeling grossed out. And this one didn't make me feel grossed out. It just made me feel really uncomfortable. I like peeking my face behind the blanket and being a little scared and just discovering this whole new world. And I love trying to figure out if this is horror in the sense of something that's truly them, they're living, or if it's horror in the sense that it's in their head and it's not maybe really existing. It's so fascinating, so fun. And The Woman in Black is about a man who ends up going to this very old, decrepit house, and it's in the middle of a marsh, and the water comes up and you can't leave, the water goes down and then you can't leave. The thing is that you get stuck on this island and you can't leave, and there's this ghost, the woman in black, who's haunting this area. It's very uncomfortable, really fascinating, and so well done in the sense of cinematography and also the acting. It's just superb. So I highly recommend this one as well if you end up liking more atmospheric and comfortable films. Also, if you're a fan of Daniel Radcliffe, I think he did an excellent job in this film as well. The other one I want to talk about is more like a horror comedy, and that's this one we watched last year as well, and this is The Menu. This was not what I was expecting. I was expecting like just a comedic film about people who are obsessed with social medias and like the horrors of what social medias do to us. But really, it takes a whole different turn. I'm not going to tell you what happens because I think that's the fun part of this film, of just jumping in and being completely shocked with, holy moly, why are these people so weird? Why is this movie making me uncomfortable? And why do I not want to live in this land? And should we continue taking pictures of food or not? And that's a hard question for me because I love taking pictures of my food. But still the question, should we be or should we not be? So this movie, I don't want to talk too much about it because I think it's just a fun movie to jump into without knowing very much about it. It still adds a little bit of that mystery to it, but it's very focused on cinematography as well. But this one's mostly, the reason I like this film is because it's so weird and so uncomfortable, and it has to deal with a lot of food. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a foodie. I love my food. And it was kind of fun to kind of realize that Micha and I are a bit of food snobs. Thankfully, we just do it with each other. But we definitely are that couple that sit in the restaurant and say, the salt in here is a little bit too strong. Or, maybe that was nutmeg that they used to spice it up a little bit. Yeah, we're those people. I'm sorry. But we love food. We love kind of talking about it, but we also really enjoy good things. And when we watch a film that kind of makes fun of us, it was definitely kind of a weird situation as well. So highly recommend that one as well. I have one that's the most creepiest out of all of them, and that's The Chestnut Man. This show is, I believe, Dutch, but it's really, really well done. You have a mystery behind it, but it's kind of gory, but it makes me feel like a true crime episode, or like I'm listening to a true crime podcast. So if you like true crime podcasts, this might be something for you, but it's definitely uncomfortable, definitely weird. We end up trying to figure out who's murdering these people in this small town, and he's leaving little chestnut people around the town as well. It's so funky and but really beautifully done, and the mystery is really, really well done. So highly recommend that. Okay, books. I have 3 books here that I'm going to talk about, and I think all 3 of them are quite fascinating and really well done. The first one is one that I actually recently finished, and that's What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is such a beautifully written book. This actually takes place about, it kind of fits with the story from Edgar Allan Poe and The House of Usher. So if you want to read this one, I highly recommend picking up The House of Usher. It is literally just like 10 pages long, so it's not a long story. If you want to get a little bit of a better kind of overview and character kind of structure, or who the characters really are, I highly recommend picking up Edgar Allan Poe's The House of Usher, and then reading this one next. This is really creepy, uncomfortable, but it has to deal with mushrooms and spores, and I love mushrooms and spores, and it was so well done in the sense of the descriptions and the uncomfortableness. We have these rabbits that are acting just kind of weird and odd, and we're trying to figure out why everything is just a little bit off. I love that kind of horror, and this is doing that so well. I've read only one other book by T. Kingfisher, and this one was definitely a one that made me realize, ooh, I need to read more of her books. So really well done, really creepy, and such a short novel too. So you can definitely read it in like a day or two. The other one is called Smother Moss by Elisa Alluring. This one's also very uncomfortable. Weird about the bunnies, but the bunnies came in not too long ago. So we see a lot of bunnies on horror films or horror books. So Smother Moss is definitely one of those books you read and you're trying to figure out what's happening at all times. We end up following this young girl who kind of feels that two sisters actually, and one of them feels that she can leave little tokens to have the mountain respond to her. So she leaves like little things that she's created, like little drawings, and these drawings kind of encourage the mountains that they live under to do certain things. And a murder ends up happening, and the murder ends up going into the mountains, and they want to solve this mystery. And kind of also they get involved in it in a weird way. And it's just very atmospheric, very uncomfortable, but it's beautifully done in certain ways. It's one of those books where I have to reread again to actually understand all of the things that did happen, because now that I'm trying to tell you, I'm realizing, ooh, there are things I actually can't remember. But the ending is just, whoa, weird and horror-y and delightful. So I think Smother Moss is definitely an interesting novel. It's worth picking up, but do realize it's not for everybody, because it's going to be one of those books where you're going to feel like you have to reread again, as I'm realizing right now. The last one is one I've recommended actually a couple times, but I'm going to keep recommending it because it's probably one of my favorite books, and that's We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. This is one of those books that you also have an unreliable narrator, and I love it. I love that weirdness. It has that witchy feeling of just you don't know what's happening, and it makes you uncomfortable, and I just love it so much. So I highly recommend We Have Always Lived in a Castle. This is going to be another one of those stories that follows two sisters, and I have a lot of books that follow two sisters but this is another one that follows two sisters who live in some ginormous house alone, and there's this mystery of what happened in this house, what happened to the family, what happened to just the family as a whole. All of a sudden a lot of people died, and now there's only two sisters left, and you're just trying to figure out why and who did what and what did what, and if you can trust the people you're talking to. Me and my partner both took two different things out of the story. I trusted the narrator in the end. He did not trust the narrator in the end. So this is definitely one of those books that you can really have a great discussion about and really dive deep into and just kind of wonder and hypothesize about. And also it's just the atmosphere, again, just beautifully done. So these are the three books I highly recommend. I did want to talk about two books I haven't finished, but I had started, and the one is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I just started this one. I'm literally only 20 pages in, but it's also really well written. I'm really enjoying it so far. We follow a young woman who has run away from home 6 years ago, and she's been invited to a wedding. That's as far as I've gotten in, and it is so interesting so far, and I've really enjoyed the writing style. Really dislike some people in it though already. And then we have House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. This is a fatty. This is a fat book. I started reading this book last year. I didn't get very far into it. At least it felt like I didn't get very far into it. I got 44 pages into it, but at the beginning it's just block text. And so it's a lot of information, and then you're trying to find, you're trying to make all the connections between everything. But this is about a house, a horror house, and it's supposed to be so well written and so well done. It's also talked about so often because it has a very different structure than most books. You have areas that are like letters, you have areas that are just blank, you have areas that you have a book that's written in such a weird format that it's really supposed to be fascinating, but I haven't gotten far enough into it to tell you very much about it. But I'm looking forward to continuing reading this one. I just wanted to mention these two books because these ones are the ones I'm currently reading, and sometimes it's fun to share what we're reading. So that's horror books and horror movies and horror shows that I highly recommend. These are the shows that I enjoy watching during this season, especially when it gets a little bit more spooky, a little bit more gloomy, and a little bit more fun. So that's it. Those are my recommendations for cozy sofa, mystery sofa, and chair. Thanks so much for joining me for this video. I hope that was entertaining for you guys. I hope you found some new shows and new books and new movies to watch this season. Let me know which one you're actually wanting to pick up. Maybe you have watched or seen or read one of these, and maybe you want to tell me a little bit more about it. I would love to hear it. But if you haven't, I would love to hear which one you found most fascinating, or what kind of category do you kind of identify yourself in? Do you consider yourself somebody who's more cozy, more mystery, or somebody who likes a little bit more of the horror genre? I would kind of love to know. I would love to know what you guys are also wanting to see more of. But this was definitely a lot of fun to do, especially since I got to do like outfit changes. That was a lot of excitement and movement. So thank you so much for joining me. I honestly had so much fun. And regarding Mr. or Mrs. Pumpkinhead, I made this pumpkin. This is one pumpkin I talked about in my decorating with me video, but it was turned around so he looked like a normal pumpkin. But this is actually a pumpkin I can wear. I'm not going to put him on because I have my glasses on and it's hard. But this is something I just recently made, and I'm so proud of it, and I love it so much. And I was wondering if this is actually something you guys want to see. I made these little ghosties, I've made my pumpkins, and I've made this as well. And if you guys are interested in seeing how to make these things, I'm not the best at trying to describe crafty tasks, but we can go through the experience together because I recorded myself on how to make all 3 of these things, the normal pumpkins, the face pumpkin, and the little ghosties. And if you guys want to see it, I would love to kind of put together a quick little video of the things I ran into, the problems I ran into, and the outcome in the end. So let me know your thoughts. I would love to do one, but if you don't want to see it, I understand. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being amazing. And that's it today. So I hope you have a fantastic day, a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you guys next week with another wonderfully fall video. Until then, ciao!